Thank you very much for your time. On stage number one, we are going to start listening to Mr. Mark Palumbo. He has cannabinoids like CBD and THC and plus eating and how to take best advantage. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I really appreciate you all being here. I would really like to start off by thanking the hosts. I've watched them create and all over on this place. One picture the last few days and a terrific job. Great to see somebody I know people really excited about what this thing has potential to lead to. So I'm here to essentially share my research experiences and my user experiences, honestly, with the product and turning the cannabinoids, spending the attention on turning cannabinoids into a therapeutic tool. Of course, the much maligned plant has had too much illegality to get really deep into the kind of studies that really need to be done, although I'm sure our governments have done it pretty well, just didn't tell us. But we're not going to wait for that, and we're going to move on. So let's get going. Table of contents. These are the contacts. I can get you all of that later. There's certainly business cards over at the booth, etc. Okay, so what we developed was two-site technology, and is what we call it. Pepper Labs is the company. Two-site is the tech. What two-site technology intends to do is bring oil-soluble active ingredients to the cell. As we all know, the cell sits in water. At the end of the day, you might go through the skin and encounter ceramides and fatty acids, other fatty materials, but it has to get through that water to get to the cell sites where it can do its activity, be used in the mechanism of the cell to create the kind of stuff that we're looking for, anti-inflammation, whatever neurological effects we seek, etc. Mariana, are you close by? Mariana was translating, and I don't want to talk too fast. We good? Oh, are you okay? Yeah? Okay. Okay, when the Farm Bill was passed in 2018, everybody, quite frankly, whoever rolled a joint in their lifetime was going to be a billionaire in this market. And a lot of people have come and go, and I'm sure you've seen got pretty crazy for a while. A lot of investors came in hot and heavy and putting their money in places that really had attention, but doing the kind of work necessary to make this a true therapeutic. So we tried to define at first what the problems were, both by understanding the molecule better and then riding around to the different dispensaries and stores that were selling and buying product and seeing what kind of performance they were getting. Now, a big reason for this too, it's a bit selfish, I'll say. I'm a chronic pain sufferer. I have been since I was about 22 years old. That was 20 years ago. So a lot of experience in that realm. And most of my diet during those years was ibuprofen every day, many opiates, and all the wonderful side effects that the drug articles talk about. I got them all, everywhere. So I really wanted a different way to get around this, and something a lot more natural. And I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for quite a while, but quite frankly, I believe the pharmaceutical industry is maybe going a little too far the wrong way now. The synthetics and the side effects and the multiple medications you need to combat those things because they're not helping the actual disease. I want to work with things that work with the body. And I think that what we learned makes me feel really confident that we've got something here. I think we make something really happen for the clinician's toolbox. Okay, so the first problem that we defined was the oil-soluble ingredients. I would really like something to pass that out of the right cell. So you'll notice that the little circular drops, everything, the numbers you get, you see 2,000 milligrams per kg. just how much I never believed my own stick, but so they have very limited interaction with oil. So oils fight a lot. Literally, you have to put a lot of CBD in the product to get some to penetrate, get some to do the work. The process we developed involves encapsulating, semi-encapsulation, I'll call it, the oil-soluble active, in this case the cannabinoids, into a water-soluble product. And it really renders the oil-soluble more compatible or more dispersible. Like I said, you can make things around or travel. Scientifically speaking, it's not an actually very accurate statement. So when we attach these things, we get a product that can transit that water part of the environment around the cell that I was talking about. The second problem we came after was instability. And I had a conversation with some researchers at the University of Texas at Galveston. And their big complaint was the stuff's not stable. It doesn't last long. It's not there for months. So I hooked up with a lab in Burbank, California, who is an FDA-regulated OTC testing lab, to do an official stability test. What I did in that test was the amount of CBD I put in, 2/3 of it was in the compound, and 1/3 of it was free. So the conditions in such a test are elevated temperature and elevated humidity. Some people run centrifuges, I don't think this was done in this case, it's not a pharmaceutical requirement. And then they do a time zero analysis. They do another one at 1 month, at 2 months, at 3 months. People are getting more conservative now. There was a time when 3 months would have been 3 years of shelf life. I don't really ride on that, which I feel comfortable saying that 3 months, I give you 18 months of shelf life. But I have a lot of data that shows that we actually exceed that. Okay, so what happened was, some of the degradation, the product was made out in 2018. We got to the testing lab in the first week of November of 2018. They did all this testing and whatnot, and the testing started around the 15th or so. The time zero testing is already showing some degradation in the amount of CBD based on our data compared to our batch records. After the 1 month stability ended, they pulled the samples out for testing. What we found was that 1/3 of the CBD in the sample because of mass specs and I was not going to jump just yet. I didn't have the stuff that I just made. So by the third month, when we tested, the levels of what was left were steady. We were able to determine that the material that we had put in the complex was holding up. To add one and create this lab for this, I left them in rough conditions. Minnesota, California, so in November of this past year, I took that same sample and tested it and I don't want to say it was unchanged, but the change was far less than 5%. And that's 3 years later. And the lotion was actually still stable. I still use that lotion. And it works just fine. That's some extra inventory if anybody wants a low price start to try it out. Okay, now we want to test performance. So, of course, we go in vitro first. I like to go to an in vitro lab that I feel comfortable with. He's got a pretty big data analysis. I would say that we all understand that in vitro is not understood. But it's about a 65 to 75% predictability. When it comes out of that, I'll use these data because you know it's going to be expensive to do clinical analysis, which will be pricey. What we found in this test was the graph is we had CBD neat in coconut oil, the MCT is that we use. We had our complex CBD also in coconut oil. We passed it through the state-of-the-art synthetic membrane for skin in the in vitro lab, that's STRAT-M modeling. We passed more than 30 times more CBD through that skin barrier than the CBD alone. And even the testing lab called me and said, I really didn't expect that. That is really interesting result. So every little step of the way, I kept getting more and more inspired about continuing this. This next one is a very new, a pretty new model on the in vitro side. It's called the pamphlet analysis. The pamphlet is, as you can see, what it stands for. So the idea is we're checking gut penetration. The membranes mimic the gut. We did the same setup for the study as far as the samples were concerned. And when they ate the product, we passed roughly 300% more CBD through the gut lining than the native CBD did. So of course it was a lot closer. The digestive aspects of the gut, et cetera, had play on it as well. But still, in this graph is really simplified. I am happy to provide anyone who's interested with the real test, but it gets a little complicated. So if anybody's got that level of scientific interest, please see me, and I'm happy to let other people speak through what I'm saying. The test. Okay, the next thing was, as I got into this world, I have 30 years of background, maybe 25 in the cosmetic industry. And when I was in the pharmaceutical industry before that, they stuck on a word they use frequently called compliance. You can make a treatment and make it, it's going to work pretty well, but if it tastes like the neighbor's sewer pipe, you're probably not going to. So compliance is really a big deal to make sure that people kept using the product that you're making for them, and they continued on the therapy you had prescribed. So the formulas that I was seeing out there were older, conventional. You see them all the time if you go out getting into liquor, for example. You see a mineral kind of formula. It's simple, it's a stiff formula, it holds everything in place on a distribution level, but it doesn't necessarily help active transit or kind of alive. There's a lot of stuff that really is alive activity to go any further than that gel. And I think the performance is a lot more limited according to what I'm seeing. Now, when you do the formulas, when you do some technology, we wipe away, we provide raw material plastic. Not only does this technology work on making cannabinoids water dispersible, it works on essential oils, oil-soluble vitamins, other oil-soluble actives that tend to stay with plants, and on terpenes as well. So we just finished the test on the terpenes. I don't have the data yet, I haven't extended it yet. But what we did find out was that the terpenes, you can imagine, if they're literally very small, so on their own, just as quick. So what we found with the advantage of using this technology was not so much penetration enhancement, but the time enhancement. You got activity over a much longer period of time when particularly terpenes was long gone by the time we had compared the two. Now, from a very basic formulation point of view, this might get a little bit, I'll try to keep it untechnical, but when you make an emulsion, we usually form our emulsions first, and then the emulsion formation is complete, I add the product after, because there is a temperature sensitivity to it. I can't recommend it for a lipstick necessarily, because you need to recommend it for people and they can see that. So we recommend that your batch comes out for 40 degrees centigrade before you add it. And it disperses pretty readily in the water phase. And with everything else in the product, you'll find that it maintains a position. You don't see drops, you don't see precipitation or anything like that. And the final product. And the rest you see there is chocolates and and also shear as well. So we use homogenizers up to 4,000 to 5,000 RPM, pretty robust mixing equipment, and all the way down to stirrers if we wanted to. But we like to get a very fine emulsion and make a product that really travels, spreads a certain amount, and I can certainly help anybody do this, and penetrates relatively quickly without needing any kind of a residue that's tacky or draggy or anything like that. So you kind of feel it like the thing is gotten where it's got to go. And what I'm finding from most people who have tried it and tell me the answer is that they'll put it on a pain they have someplace, a joint in the neck, whatever it is, and I'll ask them, if I'm with them, half an hour later, and I'll say, how you doing? And they're like, I didn't even think about it. I forgot I was in pain. And it's that kind of stuff, which I think every medicine should. It shouldn't have to feel like your head is work. Ease your way, if you get it, the ingestibles last a little bit longer. I probably should say this at this point in time, and it's kind of a little bit of a word of caution, if I may. The reason why we determined that those original oils that I bought and couldn't find any CBD in is because hemp oil, CBD, the oil-soluble, it's pretty unstable. If you can go to the city and get it as well as you can, it's going to be all by myself. We used to go to hemp oil in the years ago. It's one that has about 3 years before. These guys are shooting stuff that was $55 cans. If you didn't use the whole can in 3 months, it was gone. Couldn't use it, it smelled, it was off. So we got to get $5 containers, and again, you had to get rid of it all the time. What would you need at that time that you're going to use immediately? This transfer is pretty accurate. So, is exactly what I was going to do just 1 month of accelerated additions. And this thing here, 3 years later, we're still seeing the same amount, pretty close to the same amount. So that's really a big thing. I've got a lot of folks coming to me saying they're not quite so sure about the formula that they're working with. I do formulation as well. And they'll ask me to check it. I'll have a check. And I have a tissue culture laboratory in Pasadena and Caltech. And I can run mass spec. I'll tell them the CBD, the drop. A lot of times I can look at it visually now that I know as much as I've learned to give them advice on how to proceed. So, as you know, in the supply chain, many of you do, we manufacture the product, we put it into quarantine, send it to the lab for testing, they come back to the clinic, take it out of quarantine, stick it on the shelves, you wait for the truck to come in and pick it up, you drive it over to the customer or fly it or whatever you have to do to get there, they pick it up, they drag it in there, and they throw it in their warehouse until the stores are able to buy it. So you can imagine the time that you manufacture that product, the time that it actually gets into the marketplace on the shelf, it's 6 to 8 months to do that. And based on the testing that we did for CBD and the original test, we wouldn't have the CBD on the shelf. We would have some as well. So because we've extended the shelf life so long, we're really hopeful, honestly, that somebody doesn't open up your pain cream and use it over the course of 3 years. I'm kind of hoping that they'll buy it within a month or so, a couple of weeks. But I think that you'll find that a lot of folks will tell you they're getting a good result from it. And a lot of the feedback I got early on was from people who were many were friends, many were old acquaintances, many were people who were associated with it in the build-up of the company who had relatives that were older. Who had other firms that physical foods and wanted to try it. So I sent it out to really give it a lot of free product. But it was worth it for what I heard when I came back. Even those who were CBD fans who were already using the drops or the things or even capsules that I had said that I thought what I was using was of course, very flattering, but again, kind of a big skeptic, and I guess the big answer to was the continuation of the 70% rebuys that we get, a lot of reorders, and then the 30% growth pattern that we're seeing on the other side of that equation. Now, I will tell you this, for those of you who open white label and make your own product, that is not our primary focus, and not our market. And scientists that do highlight crazy stuff and improve that kind of work. So we're happy to help out with the formulations and the designs and whatnot to get you to a formula that you think your customers are really happy with, perhaps in your own label. Of course, there are negotiations and whatnot with the volumes and that kind of thing, but that's for another time. So what does this mean for me? How we get to a better head fix about the idea that we can use natural products and we can use them on the westernized, if you will, putting them in the food, whatever. In Western society, really this evolves, and probably most of you at 30 days, me is probably more like 90 by now. So that process has to occur before you get to the underlying results as they come forward. So there's a lot of education in this, and we're happy to share the information and to continue driving tests that we think will improve on the consumer experience, and maybe even a little more so the clinician's experience. Because we want them to confidently walk in a room, recommend something to a patient who has a particular issue that they think this is going to solve, and have it solved. And the whole trust thing builds all the way around for everybody: product, clinician, patient, everybody. It's a different read on the whole thing. So by the penetration results that we got, ultimately what we learned is you can use a lot less. I was beginning to find that you'd have to use 2,000 milligrams of CBD before I could go 200. And I believe less is more. You can use less products, less side effects. I had a kind of a curious experience with the Louisiana University and he was such a seizure study, more rare and he had 30 children in patients for 30 drugs. They used to continue to come to the lab to the only FDA product. What I learned from neurologists during the process was that nutrition operating at studies 30% side effects. They lost 30% at the time. So at that lunch, the professor said, "What is THC in the product?" Isn't it? So legal was a play practitioner. We know what happens. We kind of learned that 3 years. The fellowship next to him, fellow producers, and he said, "Can I give my son the capsules?" And the son was maybe 14 years old. The disease was called water disease. Relatively rare. That's really kids who are baseball games and they're part of the got some sort of it's helping move things along. So I asked this is how it goes in this issue. I don't have to further so I asked him to go back to the physician in the study and ask him to do that. So when we try to get rid of the physician, oh, yeah, sure, we're just going to find out so when the products are used, we're going to physician I really appreciate it. sort of provide all the products you need. But I really want to ask you, please, don't give me you'll know how to do it. If you will please start there. This was in June of 2018, and the physician actually called me a few months later and said, you know, it was wrong. He said, this stuff works so much better, and it's so much kinder for your body. That's just like, she was on 4 medication, she's not honest at all. In fact, I felt better about this whole story. I was a little skeptical. I was a little hesitant because when you get into this meeting, and you go all the way through. And I didn't want to talk to myself into a corner, but as it turns out, I felt like divorce. I heard good from that, associated with that. So maybe it's something kind of bad and I first that, but it was a very interesting topic because inflammation is a lot of so many things that we talk about. Maybe most of the things. Okay, so another benefit, the last one I have up is that there are efficient storage benefits. Well, you less this product, this two-step product is depending on the batch itself, I really realize that the batch process probably the next level about 23.5% concentration. So you're going to have 75% of something else in the carrier in this case. So bioavailability is large, so very little density powder. And if I fill up the powder, maybe get 2 kilos, something like that. Very little. But a little goes a long way, and it's much, much later to ship. You don't need anywhere near as much material. You can confine it to a pallet in big orders. To give you a little bit of an example, I can make a ton and a half of a complex a week in order to ship. And that's 1.5, really 22 million. So really, it goes a long way to try to use it in every country that I have. So this is a big point. You know, the reason why I love the AIDS to figure it out, the process, etc. Was really the physician suggested that we get our lives and we decided that many of the secretaries who flip those stories of our rates, consultation, and reminded me of the poster that I seen years ago in gift shops. And the poster was about the bottle arguing about who was in charge. Of course, the break comes out first, but we control the process. So obviously, we're in charge. Mark's coming in, and we come to water makers. They just said, "You're going to get the option and do the work." They want the eyes and the ears. But through the process, the guy had a lot of upset. So he shut down. He just let everybody else go through the application. Certainly, as you can imagine, it happens, the brain got fuzzy, the eyes got clouded, couldn't hear real well and stuff, and the heart was aching, trying to get things moving and whatnot. And you can imagine what the punchline was. You don't have to do it to be the boss. You just have to do it. I won't say that. A bad guy. Never mind. Can't really translate that. So, let's see. We have found other therapeutics that were really efficient. So we're a wonderful guy who's Eastern Western medical training and had a Santa Barbara, California. And the guy had 16,000 patients, including India, some Paris, somewhere else, half of Hollywood, the whole world for the movies, Fast and Furious, his girlfriend worked for. I didn't have any experience, but he had a very significant, very telling patient cohort in his practice. And he and I started greatly building more stability. As you can imagine, his pharmacy was bonds of rights. He'd assess the patient's condition, they would offer some tea for them, or some food that they would take in, and send them home. Everybody would go to the And I think customized medicine is something that we all see because we all know that every one of us has nuances that Dianetics doesn't have. You don't have the same action. The problem with that is always when we only get a lot. It's hard to go out and well, they really happy to capture as many things as you can. You can use adjuncts later on. But what we found was what we were doing was very kind to the body because of the low levels of active, because of the lower interaction with other drug products, because of the routes of penetration, because of the speed of penetration. That we had something that was helping do pretty quickly and doing well. I haven't had one person complain about the side effect since we started doing this. And I haven't had nobody tell me it didn't work. But, I've given it to 1,000 people. I'm sure 910 of them said, they just didn't call me. That's it. Guys, thank you for your time. I want you to know that we're really considering a lot of research. I'll be happy to take any questions, but I did forget to make the point that what Henry and I, the clinician who studied, was melanoma type 2 cells, CBD topically applied. Henry had grown fond of another molecule he had found that was growing in Southeast Asia. He brought the material in and combined it with CBD, and our early test results were positive enough so that the patients he was giving it to followed that was very returning and efficient capacity. And just some of the holistic practitioners who deal with these folks helped them with the but it was really promising for the amount of stuff that we think we can do with this and the combinations we can work with others. We spent a lot of time together and I think we had this kind of really fun. Thank you. I'm sorry. I